Hello there, I'm Vidya Ramphal. This is TDT Live. As the spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus continues to raise concerns the world over, Trinidad and Tobago has been putting in place a number of measures to stem the spread. One of these measures is in the arena of sport. With me tonight to discuss these measures and the impact on the sporting fraternity is the chairman of the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Douglas Camacho, and we'll be joined later by president of the N3As, Ephraim Surrett, and chairman of the First Citizens Sports Foundation and member of the TTOC, Dr. Terry Ali. Now, earlier today, Mr. Camacho, first of all, welcome and thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
Earlier today, the Prime Minister advised against mass gatherings in his address to the nation, and that effectively has cancelled all remaining sporting events. The sports company certainly would be in agreement with this.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, sometime earlier in the week, we had taken the decision, end of last week, to, as of midnight on Sunday, to take all sporting facilities offline to the public. We felt that that was the responsible thing to do, recognizing, of course, that we had a number of teams and individuals, both training for the Olympics, world events, regional events, etc., and that some sort of other accommodation would have to be made to ensure that they could continue training, but without exposing the country in general to more and more opportunities to have the virus spread.
It's not the first time that a virus has stopped sports in its tracks. Back in 1972, you would remember the polio outbreak, killed 10 people. Carnival was pushed back 3 months, and of course it led to the famous Calypso by Lord Kitchener, Rainorama in 1973. How does this compare? It doesn't seem that there is much comparison between the scale of these two events.
Well, first of all, I think times are different, and what makes this particularly different from, say, 72 is the nature of communication. As you would appreciate these days, as events occur, somebody's filming, somebody's taping, and immediately transmitting it to everybody else. So I think that awareness is far more available to the public at large in the current times than in 1972, or even the swine flu, or all the other things that have passed through that have created situations where sport has had to be cancelled. The last big one for us really was when we were going to host the first ever Caribbean Games, if you remember. And that came to an end with the swine flu. So it's not the first. I'm sure it won't be the last. But hopefully this time we're a little bit more proactive and not reactive.
Right, and it has seemed that way indeed. Now, what have your stakeholders been saying? The decision to close the facilities, for instance, was not a very popular one.
Well, interestingly enough, it wasn't that it was not popular, because before we actually made the decision, we did reach out to the stakeholders. So, for instance, the national governing bodies were aware we would make that decision. And in fact, we were in dialogue with them with regard to should we be pulling teams from competitions before the hosts of those events actually cancelled. So I could take a number of examples. In the case of team sport, I'm also president of the hockey board, and we had the men's and ladies teams leaving next week to go to the World Indoor Championship qualifier. And as you remember, the men took part in the actual finals the last time in Germany. So a real team that is ranked in the top 12 in the world in indoor hockey. And before the organizers had made the decision to actually cancel, and it's in the States, the local board had made the decision to withdraw the team. So, people are acting responsibly. I think people realize this is not a selfish thing just about the individual athlete or about the individual team, but rather about the nation on the whole, and as we see, a global thing. So, no, it didn't go down too badly. In the case of the individual sports, as I say, we reached out, certainly the president of the N3As, who will be coming on a little later on this program, he was very concerned about it and was looking at the whole Carifta thing and had made a decision with his colleagues to cancel Trinidad's participation, whether or not, that the organizers in Bermuda had canceled. Similarly with swimming, President of ASAT and his council had taken the decision to withdraw the Trinidad team even before the organizers took that decision. So, I think, we're in agreement with the measures as the Prime Minister identified. Tongue-in-cheek, I guess, probably the biggest one that will hit trainees, knowing trainees, is the fact that they're closing the bars. But, logically, one could understand what one needs to do for the country. It can't be just about the individual.
Well, in fact, the joke is already going around. There are too many cases of corona in the bars, but we won't get onto that. The Olympic Games, certainly the biggest event this year. It's the biggest spend, I would imagine, for the sports company this year. that has also been affected. There's going to be an announcement perhaps tomorrow as the Olympic Committee meets. I'm sure you're looking forward to see what they're going to say when the Olympic Committee meets also on the internet via Skype, I believe it is.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that is that the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, have so far, I want to say doubled down almost on the fact that the games would go on. They have repeatedly said it will go on. I guess they are doing the analysis and projecting out and figuring that come, the middle of the year, by that time, not that the virus would have been beat, but they certainly that things would be at a point in time where normal activity, if one could use such a word, would have recommenced. And so they still, at this stage, at least up to recently, up to yesterday, I think, had planned, it's going on. Of course, like everyone else, they say they're monitoring it day by day. And they will have to be in touch with the organizing committee in Japan and all the Olympic committees, all 204 or 5 around the world, with a view to will you participate, and I guess there are caveats there. So.
But how realistic is that? Because let's take boxing, for instance. The boxing qualifiers in London have been cancelled. They took place behind closed doors. The qualifiers for the Americas in Buenos Aires have also been cancelled. And same thing with many other sports. The qualifiers for the Olympics, which will decide the athletes that are going there, have been cancelled. So wouldn't that suggest that...
I think that is where the real crux of the matter is. Mm-hmm. Not all sports still have qualifiers going on, but a few do. I think what they would then have to do is determine some mechanism, if they're going to go ahead with the same timelines, to have the qualifiers take place, obviously closer to the games with all that. That means maybe IOC may look to step in and help with costs and so on. That even, ironically, when Buenos Aires first decided to cancel, the international board had reached out to the sports company and to the local body with a view to Trinidad and Tobago picking up the host. Because at that time we had no cases and hadn't yet started seriously putting curbs on it, other than international travel coming in. And we had upfront, at that stage, said that would be responsible of us, at this stage, knowing what's going on in the world, to agree to even consider such a thing. And that just went away, and I never heard another word about it. But you're right, I think that is really going to be the challenge, the qualifiers for the few sports that are yet to be determined. Most have been determined, but certainly those that aren't. That will be the challenge.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And outside the Olympics, all the other sports, there are various activities going on. Well, of course, athletics will pick up a little bit with Mr. Surratt. Golf, for instance, has cancelled the TNT Open, which was due to start on Thursday. There were teams due to go out to play at junior and senior level. What happens to these teams now? Is it just... what can you say to these athletes who had the dream of representing their countries in these various sports? What can you say to them?
Well, the reality is you have to recognize that there's a bigger picture here. Mm-hmm. There's a national picture in the case of Trinidad and Tobago. There's obviously regional and international where this particular virus is concerned. So some events may be rescheduled at a later time. Others may just be canceled completely. The real challenge is for ones that have trained for once in a 4-year, like the Olympics, once in a 4-year World Championship, that type of opportunity, which really is difficult. The annual one, yes, it will affect some. Some may have had the chance now and may not be available if it's next year. But I think, by and large, one has to recognize that tough times call for tough measures and tough decisions, and that it's all of us who have to pitch in. It's not being done unto you. It is we, all of us, accepting our responsibility as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and doing our part.
Yeah, we certainly do have to do our part here. Now, beyond the sports that are supported, all the sports, of course, supported by your organization, Sports Company of Trinidad and Tobago, the grassroots sportsmen, what do you have to say to them? Because somebody was mentioning to me, how are we going to stop the guys who are coming out in the savannah and they're going to be playing football or cricket or something tonight? Well, what do we say to all of them?
Well, first of all, I don't think the intention is to stop people at this stage, but to reach out to people and implore them to be sensible. And I have to say, Trinidadians, when given the opportunity to make those choices for themselves, do make the right choice. I think we often sell ourselves short for other reasons, and that leads us down a dangerous road. My own observation of what has happened since, even before today, just with the awareness of people, is that people are less inclined, since this thing has become the pandemic it has, to unnecessarily get into groupings. And be it business. I've seen businesses make the decisions long before a policy position was in place. National organizations, I mentioned swimming and hockey and track and field, but it's all of them making the decision for themselves. So, people do act responsibly. Obviously, it could become frustrating after a while, as you call it, the sweats, the people who do go to the savannah or go to the parks and train. Maybe people will find alternative ways to keep fit, skip, exercise at home, do jumps, do other things. I don't think there's an easy answer, and I don't think it is the intention to bring a sort of draconian approach either to have, the police running people out to the savannah or things like that. I'd be very surprised we'd ever reach at that stage. I myself am not a medical person, so I wouldn't want to pronounce on it, but I imagine the real concern about this, from the little that I have read, is less about the mortality factor than the ease with which it is spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That has been the real challenge. And I imagine once it plateaus, where the rate is either slowed or declining, where the health facilities, which I imagine is the major concern, could cope with whatever the flow is, that things will start to relax. Mm-hmm. I don't think the concern is as much, in some cases like the plagues that you mentioned, the death factor, the mortality factor, as much as the morbidity, just, and the whole spread of it. So, but I guess Doc could speak more to that. I mean, he's the expert. And
he will. I'm sure he will speak about that later on. Now, sponsorship. Many of these sports, your organization funds many of these sports. The Pro League, for instance, they took a long time to get going in the past year. It took a really, really long time to attract sponsors, and now this has happened here. What are your stakeholders talking to you when it comes to sponsorship? Is there a fear that the sponsors that have been so hard to earn will now run away and hide with the onset of this?
Well, in my dialogue with the private sector, so I'll speak to that, I think the state's case is clear, right? That they will continue to support wherever they could support. When the whole situation is back to normal, if one could call it that, or the new normal, they will be there still to assist in the way that they have done in the past. And the sense I have from the private sector is I don't think they will cut and run. I think they would appreciate and recognize the responsible way that people have handled this. You use the Pro League as an example. I mean, they were so close to completing it that is the challenge. When you take such a break and then you come back to finish the last 3 games or whatever it was left to finish off the Pro League, you could have a little change up of the order. Although the way it was, I think the order pretty much was more or less determined already, much like the rest of the world. You look at the major
Liverpool, for instance,
which is my side, just coincidentally.
Oh, coincidentally, yes.
Coincidentally, but I mean, you look at Europe, UEFA, all of those big leagues. The dynamic has changed. People come back out. Will the teams that were unsung still be unsung? That's life.
Well, I'm sure you're hoping that they'll decide to let Liverpool get the championship after, how many, 50 years? 35 years it is. But as a sports fan, you and I are sports fans, you longer than I have been, doesn't it feel a bit eerie that you're getting up and there's no live sport to watch anywhere?
Absolutely. And it's quite funny because I have 2 young grandsons, 8 and 5, and they follow sport a lot, and up to today, they were flicking through to see what was being, reruns, and saying, look, Pa, look, call me Pa, look at a rerun going on here in football or this game and so on. So I didn't know the result already, but they still, for them, they're still getting to see it, but for myself, of course, and others who have seen it before, still, it's past, the result. It does feel odd,
So it certainly does feel very strange to watch a lot of these reruns. But then it does emphasize, many people don't see the importance of sport. And when they say when the well goes dry, it's only then you see. But you think that people will come around to understand the importance of what sport brings?
Well, the interesting thing is that, people don't support sport in the same way as before. Television has made it available to everybody, but it has made it available in a different way. So that where before it was important to go and see the team play because you would not naturally get a feed live, and you definitely might even get a recorded feed. Now, because everything is on television, that's what they will miss. For the majority of people who watch sport now, it's television. So when people talk about sport, attendance at events has declined. I don't know that translates into less people engaged in sport. They're just engaged differently. And I think the international bodies recognize it, which is why you often hear the phrase, those games are made for sport. Basketball, the breaks they have. T20 cricket, made for television because more people enjoy the sport through viewing television than through attendance live. So I think that is what is going to change, because the eeriness will come when they realize, but nothing new. We can't get new footage because there's nothing happening. And that's across from Formula One all the way into physical sports that people are engaged in, to the extreme sports. There will be no new footage in the near term.
Yes, and April 4th, everybody's looking at that date to see what will happen. How do you think all of this is going to play out? Do you think there will be a resumption? I know you're not a doctor, you're not an epidemiologist, but in your heart of hearts, you must be hoping that we can get back to normal as soon as possible.
But I think everybody will want the society at large, Trinidad in particular, because we're speaking about here, to get back to normal. It is also healthier. Yes, people could exercise at home and all of that, but the reality is sport does make for a healthier population here, globally, everywhere. And some countries who are very, very passionate, they must be chomping at the bit waiting. And I'm fairly confident just common sense will prevail there. I do think once it plateaus, as I say, that they will probably decide you could start to resume things. Are we speaking about sport? But the same applies to school. Just think what this is doing to the whole school system, and I don't mean tertiary universities, right the way down to primary. So everything is different. Holidays will change. So here we're going to have maybe in Trinidad, so they send out to the 20th of April. So you split the long holiday into two medium-sized ones because you have to get in the same number of weeks if you want the curriculum to be completed. So I think it's going to be different for this period. But we in Trinidad have handled different many times, Mass in May and so on. So if we could have Carnival at the wrong time of the year, I think we could have anything change.
Yeah, it certainly could. Well, we'll have more with Douglas Camacho coming up in just a little bit. And who knows, this might be Colonel Roberts' signal to write his own road march hit that might last into 2021. We do have Ephraim Surrett. He'll be coming on later on. Terry Alley, Dr. Terry Alley will also be on with us later on here on TTT Live. So we'll send it to a break now. We do have more coming up for you in just a little bit, more with Douglas Camacho, plus some more guests here as we continue to discuss the effects of the coronavirus on sport in Trinidad and Tobago.
The winning numbers in the National Lottery online draws for Monday, 16th March 2020. At 10:30 a.m., play away the number 24 Queen. Pick 2 the numbers 4 and 30 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 4, 4, 3 and 3 in that order. At 1 p.m., play away the number 15 Sick Woman. Pick 2 the numbers 31 and 21 in that order. Mega Ball call. Pick 4 the numbers 1, 2, 2 and 6 in that order. At 4 p.m., play away the number 36 Donkey. Mega Ultra Ball call. Pick 2 the numbers 24 and 30 in that order. Pick 4 the numbers 1, 0, 5 and 7 in that order. And at 7 p.m., play away the number 32 Shrimps. Mega Ultra and Mega Extreme Ball call. Pick 2 the numbers 4 and 20 in that order. Mega Ball call. Pick 4 the numbers 9, 9, 9 and 9. Cash pot the numbers 1, 12, 5, 15 and 11 in any order. And the multiplier is 4.
This is The Difference, a television, radio, and social media series in which we remove the clutter. I'm Samantha Best. Let's be honest. Citizens in Trinidad and Tobago face numerous challenges in their daily lives. Some say crime, traffic, the cost of living. The list goes on. But significantly, our standard of living, or the way we live here, every one of us, is far better than billions of other people living in 142 other countries around the world. According to the International Monetary Fund's assessment, A document entitled World Economic Outlook, Our Standard of Living ranks ahead of people in China, the world's second largest economy, Russia, India, and except Bahamas, all other Caribbean countries. IMF data collected around the world quotes a Global Finance article on the world's richest countries in 2019, which ranks Trinidad and Tobago 49th out of 191 countries surveyed. Our country was among those described as small countries whose economies are disproportionately large when compared to their small populations. The IMF's data looked at inflation rates and the prices of local goods and services, among other things, to get a more accurate picture of the average standard of living of countries globally. This allowed the IMF to understand the purchasing power parity in Trinidad and Tobago in international dollars and to make comparisons with other countries worldwide. So, while people in Trinidad and Tobago may face both personal and external daily challenges, according to the IMF, the way we live, our standard of living, is far, far better than some of those in both developed and developing economies worldwide. Trinidad and Tobago stands 49th globally out of 191 countries. This is the difference.
Welcome back. We continue our response to COVID-19 here on TTT Live. I'm Vidya Ramphal. Now joining me on set, the president of the N3As, Ephraim Surratt, and Dr. Terry Alley, who is the chair of the First Citizens Sports Foundation, and also he's been going to the Olympics since 1984, which I might mention was the most profitable Olympics ever. So obviously they were inspired by you when you went there, Terry. And Ephraim, you looked a lot happier the last time I saw you doing panorama coverage for the finals, but you're not looking so happy around, because if it wasn't difficult enough to manage one of the big sports in Trinidad and Tobago, here's something that has come up, which is there's some precedent, as we talked about earlier with the polio outbreak in 1972, but this is a different challenge altogether.
It is, and being a board member of the regional body, NACAC, it was easy for Trinidad and Tobago because I had first-hand information that we were going to ask the Bermudan Federation to postpone CARIFTA. So although we were taking measures with respect to withdrawing, we didn't have to do that because we had first-hand information that the games was going to be postponed. The challenge is now when it is going to be held, and we had to take lead from the international body. World Indoor Championships was cancelled. The World Half Marathon has been rescheduled, and this last week they rescheduled the walk. So that it is a global issue, so we cannot play that we're not understanding what is happening. So we had to take that lead. So the challenge is just today, Penn Relays has been cancelled or rescheduled, but the challenge is for the athletes. How do they prepare? Not knowing when the event is going to happen.
That's right.
So that is
when the qualifiers are coming up.
Right, so that's one of the challenges. We have had discussions with sport company because we have quite a few of our Olympic athletes here who are preparing. With the closure of the stadium, arrangements would be made once they send their schedules so that we have people, so they would be able to train. Those, we're still trying to negotiate for the athletes who were selected, the 50-odd athletes who were selected for the CARIFTA Games. How do we keep them in shape? Because as a federation, we have also issued a release suspending all track and field competitions until further notice. We have set a timeline to end of May to see what happened, and then we'll make another decision after that.
And all of these changes, Dr. Ali, has added a lot of wrinkles to your preparation from where you sit as the chair for the First Citizens Sports Foundation. And as a man who's been involved in the Olympics since 1984, this certainly must concern you greatly.
Yes, it is. We have had events like this happen, and like biblically it's this too will pass. But changes will take place, and the interruptions in the sporting world right now is quite dramatic, and we're quite concerned about it because, well, take the age games, which is age-related games like Carifta, there's some athletes who will not be able to participate in Carifta again because they would have gone past the age. So this would have affected them significantly, their medal chances and everything in a Carifta as they develop into a senior athlete. So this is absolutely significant and has affected them quite significantly. And probably psychologically, we hope not that we can take them through this aspect of their lives. But all the games and all the interruptions of the games have had an economic effect on all athletes, and it has affected their preparations. How do we plan now with something that remains so unknown throughout the world? It is a new virus, it is now evolving, and all of us are now learning about it. Even the experts are now learning about it. And with time, we will learn, yes, but there have been so much interruptions that we just don't know what to do.
And it's exactly that factor, the unknown, that is so unnerving administrators because you have no idea how to go about planning for what you don't know about.
And it's true, because as I indicated, we would have suspended all track and field competitions until further notice. But as I indicated, the board, we're looking at May, hoping that things change by the end of May. If not, then we will have to make further a decision on how long again we suspend the competition. Likewise, the Carifta Games. And as Doc was saying, Carifta Games is for our junior athletes. There are a lot of college scouts who go to the Carifta Games, so athletes benefit from scholarships and all these things. And those who are in the final year, it would be a big disappointment for them and not having that opportunity to participate in the Carifta Games. But there's hope, because there's people like Richard Thompson and some other athletes who would not have gone to Carifta Games and what they have achieved. So we have examples of people who did not participate, and then we would be able to work with them. And as Doc indicated, we hope that it does not affect them psychologically.
Yes, and certainly we need to guard against that. Now the Olympic game organizers are meeting tomorrow. They're meeting via the technology. Nobody's going to be sitting in the room together. They're all taking precautions. They're going to be discussing the latest COVID developments, the impact on the 2020 Tokyo Games. I'm sure that both of you all with your hands and feet firmly in the Olympic movement will be looking forward to see what's going to happen there.
Of course. And Tokyo Olympics in '64, I think, was in October. So I don't know. Yes, the IOC have been indicating that all plans, as to maintain the July-August competition. But I think one person spoke about empty stadia, but I don't see that. And then there will be countries who may be thinking twice of participating once they know people from other countries, whoever I'll say, because the number of athletes and officials that are present at the Olympics, I don't see screening taking place for all those athletes and to ensure that everybody is safe. And I think people are very concerned about this pandemic.
Yeah, and Dr. Ali, I'm sure you're looking at that meeting. What do you expect to come out of this?
I think like I said before, it's so unknown and it's hard to predict what is going to happen. We see certain countries like China, it has plateaued and the curve is now coming downwards. But in the West and in Italy and still in England, it is still going up. They're still rising. So we do not know in a couple of months when the plateau will be reached and when it will start coming downwards. And this is where you cannot predict what is going on. So a lot of countries are being affected, and the decision will have to come sooner rather than later so that people can prepare. You can actually say, okay, qualifications will be postponed until later on. So the games will definitely, I think the reasonable thing to do is to postpone it until later. So everybody can be in a relaxed mood. They can plan for it, they can plan their training, and they can plan all the arrangements for a later date rather than trying to fit it and you're not sure what is going to happen.
So many interesting things that you all have said already, but I just want to harp on one thing about the psychological impact. Now, Ephraim, you yourself understand the importance of competing at the national games. Think back, 1977, we talk about it, I know you're embarrassed by it, but when you beat Hazley Crawford, that changed your life completely. a lot of these athletes will not get that opportunity to address the selectors and all the agents, everybody who's coming in to look at them here. What can you say to these athletes as you talk about keeping them psychologically sound in through this time?
Well, I think they have to have hope, because more so, the coaches or the scouts that come to Carifta is just to look at them physically, but they follow their performances throughout the year. So like on our website, they would go check results, they would contact the federation, and they speak with other athletes who are out there with respect to, the individual and how they make recommendations for the athletes. But I think, yes, it would affect them, but I think there's still hope for those athletes, especially the ones who were hoping to address the scouts. We are seeing an interesting development happening as well. A lot of our athletes are now going to Jamaica. Yeah, so if you had looked at the recently Gibson Relays, not just Trinidad and Tobago alone, but from the region, you would have seen quite a few athletes from Turks and Caicos, from Dominica, from
St. Lucia.
The
youngster Julian, yeah.
Right, so they have quite a few athletes from the region who are going into the system in Jamaica. So maybe that may be an option, because they are now recruiting athletes. I remember last Carifta, they were poaching athletes from Trinidad to get them into the system in Jamaica. So, that may be another option. But definitely, some of the athletes would have been building their hopes, hoping to address the scouts in Bermuda. I mean, Bermuda was all saying that they're ready, there's no cases, but it had nothing to do with they not having cases. But the participating countries, to get to Bermuda, teams would have had to go through Miami or New York. So we had to take that decision and, postpone. And as Doc say, the unknown, we don't know exactly when it would be held.
And Doc, I know during your long Olympic career, yes, you may have been the physio, but I'm sure you've dealt out some psychological advice to some of these athletes over the years. What can you say to the present crop who are facing this very uncertain future here?
I think this, like I said, this too will pass, and it's like all virus infections, it will disappear. It will come, it will go, and they will have the opportunity at another stage to prepare. And they will have other games coming up. I think how management and their management team and their personnel, their support personnel deals with it and deals with them is absolutely key at this time. That one game or one set of games or 1 year does not make an athlete. It is a career. It is a career that you have to build up and build up slowly and build up progressively that makes you into a really good athlete. And this is something that they should take to heart and say, there will be disappointments in life. There are injuries. There are other aspects that, happen to athletes. And this year is something that they had no control of. It came upon the world, it came to our region, and we just taken precautions to protect them and to protect their health. And I think once they look at that from that aspect of it, they will overcome it very quickly, and they will continue to progress and build up their athletic career.
Well, in the meantime, there's some preparation. They're already starting to prepare for the future. For instance, I understand that sports company, as you referenced it, I believe, before, the sports company, there's been some talks with N3As about getting these athletes special arrangements to continue training?
Well, besides the athletics, I think all the other team sports as well, national teams, to keep them prepared for the competition whenever it is they call for the competition. Right. So it's not just a track and field alone, but we are working, all the federations who have international competitions, working with them, giving the sport company their schedules so that they can arrange to have the athletes and the teams, prepare for the competitions.
All right, so the preparation continues, and we'll see how this plays out. It's going to be a very interesting situation to see how sport will adapt to the challenges posed by COVID-19. We'll have more coming up here on TDT Live. Stay with us as we continue to discuss the implications for sport of the outbreak of COVID-19.
Hi, Empowering Women, a message to all mothers, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, Without us women, you can't make it. Women are the backbone of this nation, of this generation. And to all women, 2 thumbs up.
I'm an artist living in Trinidad. I mean, I remember when I had my first little project, the town hall or something. Horace James came and interviewed. You know, there was a kind of curiosity about what young people were doing. That's like sometime in the 70s. And then years later, you had all these programs like Community Dateline, you know, where you could go, you had a little idea, you want to try something. There was a kind of openness. You just had to call the station, look, I'm doing a little show, you know. You got a sense of what was going on in the country, you know, whether it's Golden Rail or Pollard giving a coconut to somebody. I'm Christopher Cozier, and I believe our stories start right here on TTT.
Protect yourself from COVID-19 novel coronavirus. Thoroughly cooked meat and eggs. Healthy me, healthy you, healthy Trinidad and Tobago. A message from the Ministry of Health.
This is the TTT Live program, and we are discussing the response to COVID Live and how it has affected sports. Still with me here is Dr. Terry Alley, the chair of the First Citizen Sports Foundation, and Ephraim Surratt, the president of the N3As. And I believe that we will be joined on the air shortly by Paul Reed, a Jamaican journalist. And Jamaica did, in fact, take the lead, if you want to put it that way, in terms of cancelling the very popular Champs competition.
And that was a big decision because you know the crowds that happen when they have the Champs. All the schools and you know the stadium is filled to capacity with Champs. So they were the very first people in the region to make have such a decision. And I guess since that they have further suspend other competitions. So it is. I mean, we are really taking it serious, and as the days go by, the numbers continue to rise in the country. So you would have heard one case in Jamaica is now 9. We heard one case in Trinidad is now 4. And so that people understand the seriousness of this pandemic.
Yeah, and of course, Dr. Ali, you'd have spent some time in Jamaica, and good decision made by them also.
Yes, it is. It's an excellent decision to, especially when you see your number of cases started to escalate suddenly from 1 to 9. And what worries you is that when you start to get local cases rather than imported cases. So when you start to get local cases, it's already too late. Right. Your cancellation and all your arrangements that you made should have been made while there were imported cases so that you can make those arrangements to prevent the spread into the local environment.
All right. Well, let's bring in now Paul Reed, who is on the line with us, and Paul is a Jamaican journalist. Paul, first of all, tell us what is the latest news coming out of Jamaica in response to COVID?
It's been, well, the PM was just an air a while ago talking about restricting everything to 20 people or less, no more than that, starting on the 18th. So, from last week, we have stopped all events, including entertainment and sports.
Now, Paul, there was due to be an address to the nation by the Prime Minister of Jamaica. Has that happened already, and what exactly was said?
Finished. He just completed. As I said, he has said that effective the 18th, they will not allow any more than any crowd of over 20 people at any one place. And
Right.
they also were saying that public transportation should carry one less person than they were allowed to take prior to allow for social spacing.
Right, which is pretty similar to the announcement made today here in Trinidad and also in Britain, where the Prime Minister Boris Johnson would have made similar announcements today. And how have the Jamaican people reacted to the restructuring of the sports calendar, if you want to put it that way, brought on by COVID-19?
Well, it has not gone down well, honestly, because we're in the track and field season now, and there are some big events happening in it soon. Boys and Girls Champs, for example, that was taken off completely, and some of the schools, the people involved, did not take it lightly because they were asking for a postponement until later on. But it has been taken off completely because the sponsor, as we were hearing, did not want a postponement. So that did not go over so well.
Well, I can imagine the talk shows must be full of abuse there for the authorities in terms of sport.
Absolutely. And even the J3 president, he came out and said that they were never asked their opinion, so that didn't go over well with them either.
There was a lack of consultation, you're saying?
Yes, he was not. They were not consulted at all. It was just between ISA and the ministries, the Ministry of Sport and Health. So they took a decision.
Right. So the decision has been taken. It's not been a very popular one, but from where you sit as from where you sit as a sports journalist in Jamaica, are there any sports still going on? Are people responding to what they're hearing from the government?
Everything has been cut off effective last weekend. So there's no sport, and basically most people are obeying the rules so far. They might not like the idea of having no sports whatsoever on TV or live. So that hasn't gone over because, as you know, we love sports. I mean, we attend sports. But there was an international game last Wednesday. There was one game, and after that, everything else was off completely. Even at the under 13 level, the grassroots level, the parish level, no sports until further notice.
All right, Paul, thank you very much for updating us on the situation in Jamaica, which may be a little bit different here to TNT in terms of the responses, but it's a sport-mad nation and certainly big on track and field. I would imagine there are a lot of unhappy people around.
Of course, and this week we were expecting to have Milo Games, Central Games, and all those competitions are cancelled. I mean, Doc and myself, I think Douglas as well, we were discussing with no news, no sport, current sport. I mean, it's hard when you're looking at television, especially if you know the results of a event. You really cannot look at it again. So is, as the old people say, never miss the well till the well runs dry.
the water.
Never miss the water till the well runs dry.
I feel you might be a little thirsty, but anyway, your reaction, Dr. Ali?
Difficult times, difficult decisions. And, it's sometimes easy to blame authorities, but the authorities have to think of the welfare of the general public first. And things like economics and sports will come after. But that health factor is so important to people who make health decisions. And something like COVID, what is happening and how it has devastated populations throughout the world. And I know sometimes when you look at it at a smaller fraction from being a sports person or being an economic person, you look at it in your own field, but a prime minister or governments or the chief medical officer, they look at it at the whole population and say, look, people will terrorize me, people will tell me things that I made the wrong decision, but let me err on the side of protection of my public. And let me look after the health of my public first before I make other decisions.
Sponsorship is big in sport, and as you know, Ephraim, especially in your sport, where it's very expensive to carry on these tournaments. What you be hearing from the sponsors?
Well, luckily, from the government side, the Prime Minister has indicated, and through sport, that they will continue to support the governing bodies. I don't see that the corporate TNT or the other sponsors, I don't see that they would shy away from sponsorship. I think they too understand the situation, and I don't see them exiting. We have a partnership with Puma, NGC, Republic Bank. We have quite a few partners, and I don't see them exiting the sport. They will want to continue supporting, and just like when the other sporting competitions, the Pro League, support from government and private, and all the other sporting organizations. I don't see the corporate sponsors, just leaving the sport, and I don't think that would ever happen.
Dr. Ali, quick response?
I feel that they will all come on board because this is a virus that will affect every aspect of society. And they're going to realize that it's better to pull out now to protect and to leave it as is. And then once the virus passes, we'll come back on board. We'll support this because it's all part and parcel of life.
Yes,
and they will come back.
Certainly is. We certainly do hope that they will come back. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We're joined by Ephraim Surratt, the N3A's president, and of course, Dr. Terry Ali, the First Citizens Sports Foundation president, and earlier the sports company chairman, Douglas Camacho. Well, we've come to the end of our show tonight, but stay tuned. Coming up next, we have a rebroadcast of today's post-cabinet media briefing by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, outlining various measures to be taken to combat the spread of COVID-19. Thanks very much to our guests tonight. I'm Vidya Ramphal. Thank you very much for joining us once again. And don't forget, we'll have more reactions to COVID-19 coming up. Bye for now.